and sometimes I mix all the things together. But anyway, so I started to paint this, and then after I got the thrill for like painting large, after this first piece, this spiral piece, I was like, let me try the portraits, large scale. And then I started to paint from maybe like 17 to 20 all the time portraits. All the time in black and white as well.
Oh really?
Yeah. Again, probably because of like the hip-hop culture, which are a lot of like black and white photography, and also I love jazz, and you know all the jazz albums. So I painted lots of like jazz portraits and hip-hop portraits, and I guess it was a good mix to go with the guys that were doing their piece. So it was like the character, the graffiti, and so I got into this little venture for 3 years of just doing that. It was amazing. At the same time, again, there are a few layers into it. I started to study, and I studied communication.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a chance to go to art school, but I don't know, I guess I didn't feel ready or the connection, or so I ended up studying communication, which essentially is advertising. And of course they give you to do like projects and like, you know, and they were like, what projects would you like to do? What do you want to advertise for? And then I said, okay, so I'm doing large-scale piece in the public space, and they keep talking about this billboard, and like, what campaign are you going to do? Like, you know, how many billboards, where do you place them? And I was like, these two things can really merge together. Let me use the public space of advertising for art.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how he connected with me. I was like, cool, I can do this. This is, let me use the public space to just display, as opposed to display something that you want to sell, to just display a message, or display or promote anything that is inspiring or colorful or uplifting, or basically put out a story or an emotion that you are not selling, you are proposing it. Mm-hmm. And of course you are imposing it as well, but I guess it comes from a very good sentiment of like trying to contribute positively to the landscape. And so all the projects I did during my studies were, you know, street art projects.
Yeah.
And actually doing that, I did one of the first exhibition in Toulouse of graffiti, where we took over like a public museums, and as opposed to hang pictures, we repainted the museum. So that was really cool. So I got into this, and by the end of my study, I'll give you the full story, you know.
This is perfect.
Okay, cool. By the end of the study, so when I was 21, I had to do one large placement, and I guess I was a bit itching to, I traveled a bit but never went really truly outside of France, like having like a really big adventure. So I was like, 6 months placement, let me go abroad and let me throw myself out in the world. I always had a fascination for Morocco for some reason, and I found a way to get there, and I ended up being working in a publishing house. I was like, okay, that's my gateway. So I will work for this publishing house, and the publishing house was not for, it was creating guides, but not for the tourists, for locals. And the guides were like showing everything that's happening in the city. And I told the publishing house, let me look after the culture section. So that way I want to look at all the museums, the galleries, like, and like kind of archiving everything, what everyone was doing. And then I found a gallery which I was amazed of. And I was like, I'm here to propose you to be part of this guide, but at the same time, I'm also an artist. Can I show you my work?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, cool. So, and I show like my piece on like, kind of like the large scale piece. And she was like, that's amazing. Let's make an exhibition. So I finished my training and I stayed in Morocco for 2 years, and I super luckily was like a resident artist in this gallery. So I did a few exhibitions, and this time it was always like on canvas, paintings, which I'm sure I can show you some pieces about. I got the chance to travel throughout Morocco as well, and I love the dunes, for example. Of course, it's super colorful country, lots of, you know, all your senses are awake. And then that's where I also met the patterns, because the patterns is everywhere in Morocco, because it's an Islamic country. So because Allah can't be represented, it can't be portrayed, then the ways they would kind of celebrate Allah would be through abstract, expensive geometry that has no end. So I studied a little bit this, how they started to make it, and what was the rules, which was also super mathematical, which I really enjoyed. And yeah, so I spent 3 years in Morocco selling these paintings and exploring the country and being just, in a good place to have fun, basically.
If you kept, these days, you create work, it goes on Instagram, it's kind of there forever.
Yeah.
You go back to when you're sort of like 90s, earlier. This wasn't documented unless you took a picture of the.
I got some actual films.
Right, because you're talking about things that obviously don't sit on a feed, don't sit on a website.
Yeah.
Do you have documentation? Because documentation from that and back is so important. Otherwise, you don't see this work.
Yeah, I got
do you have
some bits.
Yeah.
It's mainly in France in like boxes, but
really?
I do have some bits.
It needs to come. It needs to serve to reproduce it.
Definitely, yeah, that could be cool.
Otherwise, people don't, because it's a fascinating journey, and people don't get to see that unless you can see.
That's true. Yeah.
You can visually tell the story that you just told. And people get to see that work.
What would be cool one day I don't think I'm kind of like old or mature enough to do it, but I would love to make a book which show everything, because there is a lot of variety in what I've done, but everything has a reason why I've started to explore or merge things, or which kind of like eventually will lead us to the piece we're doing together, because it's kind of like the merging of everything. We can come back to that.
That's a spoiler alert. This will come out far before that. So there wasn't like a formal education in art?
No. No, it was more like I was obviously fascinated by the guys doing graffiti, and mainly by the guys that were really exploring the patterns within the letters, like all the shapes, like that were basically what in graffiti you have this old school type of what they call the blob, or some like really kind of like restricted formats. But I love the guys that were doing like
wildstyle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember there was a guy in Toulouse called, what he was named? I forgot. Nippon. I found out. Anyway, he was doing like purely abstract graffiti, and as opposed to do one piece, the piece was like starting small, exploding in one corner, coming back. Was really using the space.
Yeah.
I was like, that's amazing. So yeah, I guess that was.
And you can see that in your work downstairs.
Yeah.
It all carries with you. Right?
Yeah. I guess the more I go into like working on large scales, the more I'm attracted to work in spaces, using the ceilings, even the floor, or really make use of the space, not just be like, this is the canvas, and we need to do it. And so after this 3 years in Morocco, I guess I was like, I've done it now. I saw it. I was like, okay, let's do something new now. And I also kind of wanted to go back to Europe for many reasons. And then, so being from Toulouse, I'm like, I'm not going to go back to my town. I need to do something else. So a lot of my friends from Toulouse moved to Barcelona.
Okay.
And that was the obvious place to go. Still in the sun, but like a super beautiful city, massive city as well. And so I landed in Barcelona, and instantly I fell in love with this place. And also in these years, it was crazy. The activity of like art in the street is everywhere. You could paint, and the police would come and be like, literally. The city center was covered. And I was lucky to live with so many artists which are still active and super proficient, which is amazing. It's a huge inspiration. And and so there I painted all the time with this crew, which was amazing. Obviously, when you paint in the street, up until quite recently, no one pays you to do that. So I also needed to find a way to. In Morocco, I was lucky to live as an artist, which was strange, very young like this. But in Barcelona, I became a builder. Because my flatmate Raúl Dios, graffiti, is also an amazing builder. So
you built the wall, you paint the wall.
Well, we never got to build the wall to paint them, but
it's a very nice idea though, because it's an economic circle.
That's
You're
true.
creating your own work, right?
That's so true. I'll tell him about that. Yeah, so I was a builder, and it was really fun. Like, I don't know, light part of my life where you paint, go to the beach, you do some building. You don't need too much to live.
Do you not need like good full qualifications to build? Do you just?
Raúl was he's a very experienced builder, so I was just an assistant.
What did that mean?
No, I think I guess as I started, I'm not. I don't have any qualification.
You're good at Lego.
Exactly,
So
I'm good at Lego.
Back again, remember?
Yeah, and also the study of the patterns is super mathematical, so you need to be extremely precise. So that came to help. But no, as working on building site, I was doing sanding floors, destroying walls, sometimes building walls, but like basic stuff.
Yeah,
I have to admit.
Sorry, paid for you to do your work.
He sustained me during
So
this
how
time.
old did you hit? This must be like early, mid-20s?
Yeah, when like 22 to 25, exactly. So I spent another 3 years in Barcelona, and
you've talked about how Morocco culturally influenced your work. What about Spain, Barcelona?
Oh yeah, actually, and so when I arrived in Spain, because in Morocco I didn't do any murals, I did maybe a couple, but really was not the focus. It was always working, like producing works that could be sold, so quite well finished. And when I come back in Barcelona and like met all these guys, I'm like, great, let's paint again. And so I restarted the portrait large scale, but I also kind of like, I guess I came back a bit different from Morocco, from my experience. I was like, I need to start with a new name, start fresh. So that's when I became ATMA.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. And the reason why is because the word Atma in Sanskrit means soul. And of course I've got no specific connection with India or Sanskrit, but I was reading a lot of stories from India, and then came across this word. I was like, it just instantly resonated with me. I also like the architecture of the word.
Yeah, it's a cool signature.
Yeah, it's the best part of my work. But yeah, and I was like, and I drew it, and it had this heartbeat. I was like, this is cool. This kind of like, it feels right for now. So yeah, I painted in the street I did a few exhibitions in Barcelona actually, but nothing really major. I was most having fun, to be honest.